You're listening to Surfing the Cosmic Waves Radio. Time to listen in to your host, Sonic Nova. Coming at you live from Spreaker Internet Radio, where we put a new spin on spiritual development and paranormal activities. You're listening to Surfing the Cosmic Waves Radio. Time to listen in to your host, Sonic Nova. Coming at you live from Spreaker Internet Radio, where we put a new spin on spiritual development and paranormal activities.
Welcome everybody, and I'm sorry we were having technical difficulties, but we resolved that now. I was talking away and there was no mic. So now we fixed that technical issue and here we are. Today we are going to talk about other than humans. And the show is going to be around things that have been hidden from our sight and from our awareness. Such as, basically, there are other beings that live on Earth that are from other planetary systems that have come here to coinhabit, and also cohabitate, but also invade, if you like. And like I said, the invasion happened a long time ago. So the movies that they tell you about the ETs invading us in the future, this already happened a long time ago. Anyways, there are other beings that live on Earth. Some of them are Atunnians, reptilians-draco-s, Zeta Greys, Shetis, and many others. Many of them live underground in facilities that are underground facilities now that are basically incorporated with a lot of our military. So they also live in caves and underground chambers. Some of them have bases at the bottom of the sea, around mountainsides. Some have lived in pyramids. There's many varieties of this, and there are many archaeological samples of this that have been left on Earth. So the main thing to understand here is that the Dark Reptilians, the Dracos, not the reptilians that are, because they're just like there are good and bad humans, there are good and bad reptilians, okay, are the ones who want to overtake this Earth for themselves. They are the ones that are infiltrated and controlling our governments. Many countries and many religions, such as the Catholic, Islamic, Protestant, all the ism religions, and many top leaders, okay, of governments and corporations have to, supposedly, according, I don't agree with this, but they have these subjects subjugated and under their control, okay, kings, queens, etc., that are on Earth, and basically they have them subjugated one of two ways, either by intimidation, that they're going to disappear them, or by bribery, okay? And at this point in time, we all know that there's a lot of bribery going on every single government, at every single level, and that we have a corporatocracy as opposed to having true, if you like, democracy, or a true self-reliant, sustaining governments that support their people, okay? These beings set themselves up to gain and to control through the Cabal, which people are familiar with that term. The Cabal has members nearly everywhere, mainly in the Vatican, the Roman Catholic Church, which used to be the Roman Empire, transformed into the Roman Catholic Church. That was never dissolved. The British monarchy, the CIA, the FBI, United Nations, and the shadow governments with all the big corporations that basically provide gas, electricity, food. They deliver all these substances to humanity, and that's how they control it. So, They have inflicted, and they are responsible for all the evils of acts of war, pedophilia, and assassinating, I would say, good government people, good presidents that have tried to liberate us from them, dumbing down humanity. This same group obviously covers up their own identities as Dracos. And they basically live in underground facilities. This has been verified by a multitude of people. Okay. While they control through lies, through religion, and through basically now we've discovered, Chris and I've discovered, my partner, that they're doing a lot of programming, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. They actually are trying to lower the frequency on the planet because the frequency is raising on its own, and it's awakening all of humanity, and there's more of us than them, so it's going to be an interesting turn of events when it all comes down. There are, most of the royal Dracos have left the planet, and now we have their what would you call them, Chris? Quislings. Yeah, that are stubborn and want to stay here, want to try and hold on. But in the end, we really see that this is going to be the liberation of humanity, and that basically it will be our time of coming into a place of cohabitating with other life forms here that are, you know, plants, animals, bugs, etc., and being stewards to them as opposed to destroying them. So we'll talk also about the chemical spraying that they're doing, as opposed to calling it aerosol spraying, and why they're doing that. So we're going to talk about all those things here today on the show. Thanks for coming and listening to us, and come learn how we will survive this great purification of the outer crust and the inner earth. Chris, welcome to our show.
Thank you. Nice to be here with you, Sonic.
Great. So what do you want to share with our listeners?
Well, I like the focus on the manipulation of the human species, basically, is at the cornerstone of this talk, and really concerns much of what we discussed, which is manipulation of the species through suppression of what could liberate us, whether that be knowledge, free energy, anything that enlightens us and aids us and helps our evolution rather than, you know, seeks to harm us, depopulate us. And now that these quislings, as I call them, are left sort of to their own devices and they're running, scrambling like mad, nothing they can throw at the wall now sticks, really, because we are coming into, we've come into this, the 0-point singularity, basically.
Can you explain that to people, what you mean by 0-point singularity?
Yeah, as one of the recent adepts I was listening to has described it as year one was 2014. This was Cryon, Lee Carroll, who channels Cryon, was saying that 2014 is year one. 2013 was
year one of what?
Year one of the new quantum consciousness of the age of light, the quantum singularity.
Oh, okay.
This new uplift post 2012. So 2012, the winter solstice 2012, the Mayans had it right, and they had help from ETs in the know,
right,
who knew that calendar and taught them that calendar, that was the end of the 13th Baktun, and that 2013 was a year of recalibration, sort of reformation. We were pulling it all together, and anyone listening to this who thinks back 2 years ago will probably nod their heads and go, yeah, 2013 was kind of it was all kind of feeling like you were pulling things together from the chaos of that, what some ETs call the nanosecond, the period between, Barbara Marciniak channels the Pleiadians, who call it the period between the harmonic convergence and the end of the Mayan calendar, 1987 to 2012, those 25 years they called the nanosecond, or the quickening. It was the quickening run-up to this great shift in consciousness towards the galactic center and being in alignment with it. 2013 was kind of a 0 year. It was a period of reculmination or recalibrating ourselves to the new frequencies, to the new energies. 2014 was year 1. So now we're in year 2.
But
really
then again, like Chris, like we got to think about how, they've really meddled. Like the Roman Catholic Church once again has meddled with the Gregorian calendar. That it's not an accurate calendar because the Mayan calendar is based on a 28-day cycle, like a menstrual cycle in a woman, as opposed to their kings and queens that would come and go, well, we're going to call it June because my name was, June, and I decide that this month we're going to have 31 days, So they kind of really screwed up the calendar, the true calendar, and messed up the timeline, so we wouldn't really be aware, is what I sense.
So, yes, one of the theories is that it happened about 5 years prior to that. It started actually happening around 2007-8.
Yeah.
Which is why they economically melted us down.
Right.
That's really when the shift was occurring. So, but for all effective purposes, for our record keeping as we know it, we can call, it's like the Hebrews call this year 5757. Whatever you call it, we are in the first few years now of this new sort of quantum uplift.
Right.
In consciousness, which is, if you'll notice, almost as soon as the synchronicities are off the chart. I mean, and if you've noticed in that nanosecond period, the synchronicities were pretty far apart. You may have had 1 or 2 significant synchronicities in a year, say in the 80s, 90s, then in the 2000s, or maybe by the end of the 90s, you were having one a month of really significant. Then into the 2000s.
When you talk about synchronicities, what do you mean by that?
I'm talking about things you think of, and the phone rings, and somebody starts describing something that you just started thinking of. And I'm talking about significant things. I'm not talking about I need cottage cheese from the grocery store, and someone calls and says, "Hey, I'm, got your, I'm talking about you're thinking about the cosmos. You're thinking about your existence. You're thinking about."
Got it.
Someone who you haven't talked to in 20 years, and they call you.
They pop up
as soon as you
in
think
your
of them.
field.
So those were increasing through the quickening to where now post 2012 or post 2008, whatever you want to call it, because the Mayans did calibrate for that.
For this time period?
For that meddling. They did see, and they did have things to account for that meddling. So who cares that the Roman artificers, devised this Gregorian sort of bastardization? The same time frame applies to what the Mayans were talking about. So in that same time frame that the whole Gregorian calendar is about awareness. So they want you focused on, and it's about the power of numbers. Right. And it's about the power of the degrees of the 360 of the circle. There's actually 365 days in a year. They wanted to throw that balance off because we know that evil really is imbalance and distortion. And so that's what they do, these Dionysian Roman artificers. So what I'm saying is that same time period really did apply right up to around 2010. You could say. So it wasn't thrown off that much. Okay. It was, you're talking about a couple to 2
you're
years.
talking about like 6 or 7 year cycles
at the
that
most.
are.
Well, that it was thrown off in terms of the time period we're experiencing. Throw out the Gregorian calendar, whatever. If you look at the Mayan calendar, it does pertain. They said it would pertain to this exact time period. Okay. Whatever you want to call it. So that end has come.
Well, that was their last Baktum is what they call
of about 25,000 years. Almost 26,000 years of the precession of the equinoxes. Most of your listeners probably know a lot about this stuff, and they're enlightened as we are. Right. So, but what I was talking about was prion lots of the channelers are kind of on the same page. Abraham Hicks, Barbara Marciniak.
They're all saying the same thing.
All of the channelers who we can say are certifiable as being pretty true and pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Pretty much are concurring that it's a great uplift for the mass consciousness, the collective consciousness of humanity. Our DNA is getting a huge upgrade. And it's not like you're sitting back and you're like, the software programmer is going to come in and install new software. We're part of it. We're participating in it. That's another thing these Roman artificers and really the Roman Catholic Church really got to focus on. They're the ones doing the most chicanery on Earth right now, by and far, by a far percentage point. They're the ones artificing this crap.
Right.
And they can no longer suppress it. It's like trying to put a chain link fence up on a beach to stop a mile-high tsunami. That's planet wide. I mean, they're not going to stop it. They can't stop it. So really, it's about going into your center. I like Nassim Haramein and Dan Winter's proven theories. It's beyond theoretical physics. It's
and we
really
will have
proven.
links. We'll have links for those videos that you guys can get access to that.
Yeah, we'll give you links. I would really encourage all your listeners to watch all of the Dan Winter and Nassim Haramein lectures because they're really light years, many light years beyond, a million light years beyond Einstein. Einstein had a portion of the picture, maybe 40%. So really, we are our own. Really, what it comes down to for me is we are our own quantum programmers of our own reality, and that sounds so cliche now. You create your own reality.
Well, it sounds like
a New Age bumper sticker.
But let's talk about that.
And
let's like interact in this conversation and discuss what is the quantum field, and how it really has opened up, and it's continuing. What I see is a continual evolution of it, even more and more and more. That it's easier and easier to access. Like in 1985, if I would have tried to do the remote healing sessions that we do, if we would have tried to do the work that we do remotely with people, it was almost impossible. It was almost like that there was a wall there, or there was some kind of detainer that wouldn't permit that kind of work to really take effect like it does now. And now what I'm finding is that your cliche, what you said, is that we are able to create reality, and it is becoming reality in front of us much faster than it ever did before. Because I do remember, when I was in my teens and 20s and 30s, I would always think about this planet being retarded in terms of the time frame it took for things to actually manifest, for things to literally become form. And now it's almost instantaneous. So something, and I'd like to talk to that something in the field, something in planet Earth, I believe that it has to do with when we came directly aligned to our galactic sun, galactic center. And we entered into the photon belt, which was right around 97, which was the harmonic convergence, right?
94.
Right? 94? Okay. So that's when all that really started to shake things up and really started to shift the planet and shift our consciousness and shift our ability to be able to manifest things. And that's when I feel like the powers that be, the reptilians, that there was a huge fleets that were leaving planet Earth because the head honcho reptilians knew that the time was up, and their time was, they were going to die and perish because they wouldn't be able to keep their frequency high enough to sustain their physical or non-physical bodies here. So, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how, I've noticed a huge increase in our abilities. Like today I was swimming in our beautiful lake, and I was thinking about huge monster clouds coming in, puffy, huge clouds, and bringing in a huge rainstorm, like torrential rainstorm.
Here they are rolling in.
And here they are rolling in, and I literally saw them coming in from the west, and here they are. So that's the thing that I'd like to, empower our listeners to talk about, of how they actually can create their reality, not only, physical, like where they physically are starting to shift and change, the reality is starting to affect the field. So it's important to discuss that.
Definitely. So you're participating in this universal surge. You're not just passively. This whole idea of being a passive observer of reality, throw it out the window. Turn off the video games, the TV, and I know I don't need to say this to your listeners, but I'm just saying humanity in general is sort of answering that clarion call, and they are throwing out TV, and they are questioning poisonous belief systems, toxic ideas propounded through the media, by the media controllers, owned by a small elite. We're talking about 7 billion people versus about 100,000 maybe, or less. You definitely, this is the Hopis knew this. The indigenous peoples knew that it wasn't about the dance, the rain dance. It was about that they were all thinking collectively, rain, 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 and it made it rain. So we are in such a crucible, as you put it, like a container of, or a matrix, if you will.
Can you explain the word matrix? Because most people have a misconception
matrix
of what
means
it
womb,
means. Okay.
And that's where we get the word, matron, mater, mother. It really means a crucible where an idea or an organism forms, gestates, and then is delivered. So a matrix is a container or a vessel. Okay. So in this case, this quantum matrix, the vessel for these new ideas, and they're not really new. They're just we're newly rediscovering them, really.
Because they were suppressed by who?
Yeah, they're suppressed by these artificers who artificed the Roman Catholic Church back in the 4th century AD. That really was the advent of the true Dark Ages. This whole dialectical construct of us versus them, light versus dark, good versus evil, and down to their even, I believe now at this point, what we call Lucifer was a Lucim Fair, an old name for bringers of light, true bringers of light, and they vilified that, threw in their own little boogeyman, Satan, named off of Saturn, saying that this baleful, planet that is involved in some, or connected, has been classically connected to not so good goings on for humanity, but also maybe needed, sort of like when you have depressions, but it gives you a chance to power down and have new realizations. That's kind of like the Saturn influence. So that's all it is. And sin is only missing the mark, and these boogeyman ideas to scare us. Booga booga booga, the old man behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz, throwing out the brimstone and the fire to scare us into doing their will, to scare us into conforming, to being conformist. Look at the bourgeois conformist lifestyle, and what has it done for you lately? What has it done for anyone except allow evil to flourish, to allow, it's the great opiate of the masses being disseminated by the Catholic Church like a communion wafer. Ideas of family, marriage, acquisitions, material possession. So that is all flying out the window as I see it. Now we have to get tribal. With the gathering of the tribe, we're all connecting wherever we are. They're killing off these scientists, these great teachers, these innovators, these inventors at an enormous rate. 6 or 8 have been killed in the last 6 weeks. people that are embracing this new quantum science and showing empirical proof and saying, hey, and they're not even showing it, like you said, to the peer-reviewed.
No, they're doing all
groups.
the alternative stuff.
They're keeping it to themselves, but these Catholic, these Jesuit infiltrators or whoever they are seeking them out and trying to clear them out in this last desperate clearing, or trying to grasp onto by tooth and nail. They're trying to grasp onto whatever power they've had, which has been an artificial power, literally artificial. Artifice. The Dionysian artificers are the ones who came up with. They manipulated the Christ story. It's completely not what his life was. Anything that's an official story, anything that's coming down to us through the mouth of the collective media mouthpiece, should be
and we're talking
about
mainstream media here, so I want to clarify.
And we're talking about a lot of sub-mainstream media too that poses as alternative media. So that there are plenty of those. So this is truly the age of discernment. You have to go within, go into, as Barbara Marciniak, Pleiadians put it, the internet, not the internet.
So inside of yourself, connecting to everybody is what they mean by that.
As Nassim Haramein has proven on the physics level, we contain the mass of the universe within us many times over. We are the universe. We are the connector, conduit, mouthpiece. We are really the body in this form, in this fractal reality of God, of the Godhead. God is looking and speaking through us. We are the Godheads.
Yeah, and we don't need any usurpers, any middlemen, which is what the church put themselves forth as, and why they destroyed so many cultures in so many different places that were tribal. You know, that was their whole purpose, was to destroy all these shamanistic cultures, all these ancient cultures, so that then they could be the middleman between you and God, and that also is a completely false construct, completely false notion. And what we have to get back to is to realize that God lives within each and every one of us, and that's why I said all the isms except for Buddhism is the one that actually shows you that all your answers, everything lies within you. When they say God's a breath away, they're meaning inside you. A breath inside of you, not a breath away outside of you. It
is your breath.
It is your breath.
Literally, the Godhead is breathing 7 billion times over through just the human species, just the Earth human species, let alone all the other species on the planet. Like the true Yeshua ben Joseph, the true Christ, was saying that in the what they call the apocryphal Gospels. They're not apocryphal at all. They're occult. They're hidden. They were hidden away, saying you all have this power to create miracles. You all too. I am in everything. I am in the stone. I am in the wood. Split a piece of wood. I am there. Lift a rock. You will see me. I am all of it. So yeah, these artificers have wanted to break that connection, almost jealously. That indigenous,
I would say
earthy
that
connection
it's
with,
not almost,
with us,
it is jealous.
To Gaia.
It is definitely an anger and a hatred towards the feminine. It is an anger and a hatred towards the tribes that actually were interconnected, because like Aborigines that would leave and go on a walkabout is what they called it. It didn't matter because they were telepathically connected to the rest of the tribe, and the rest of the tribe knew exactly where they were and if they were okay, and they destroyed all that. They wanted to destroy that because they wanted to manipulate and control and dominate.
Manipulation, power, and control. Again, everything they do. They dress it up in different outfits to scare us, and it's all, in final analysis, it's all manipulation, power, and control. And yes, I agree with that. The jealous God they talk about is really these artificers that are jealous of our connection to Gaia and want to cut that connection. And it goes back to the hatred of the mother, the feminine, the matriarchal power construct that was here.
Can you talk about, like what you were saying, that there was a certain period of time where, they suppressed, like, it could have happened that we had an equality of the feminine, the masculine on planet Earth, And I really feel like these usurpers, if you want to call them that, definitely are mind controlled by the Dracos.
Yeah, by the ETs.
By the ETs, you know. I'm not saying that they're innocent, but at the same time I'm basically saying that I've literally seen that they are controlled by the ETs. That's why they're, you know, if they weren't controlled by the ETs, why the hell would they do their chemical spraying on themselves?
Well, they're spraying themselves. They're
killing themselves as well.
Aerosol program.
Yeah, it's like, why would you do that if you were, you know, if you weren't being controlled by something else and told, like, you know, some of the Islamic heads that, you know, sacrifice your life and I'll give you 1,000 virgins when you die. It's that kind of manipulation that, you know, so they're stupid enough to go for it and go, okay, you know, these ETs are going to save us and they're going to, you know, so I do feel like a certain percentage of them are mind controlled.
Definitely.
And that they control, and then they do that to others.
Control their lackeys all the way down this hierarchical pyramidal structure that really, frankly, in this time frame that we're in now is just thrown out the window. There is no hierarchical anything. It now comes down to everyone's individual quantum awareness and power of themselves as being fractally coherent with the shape of the universe, the shape and sound and vibration of the universe. Right. It's all sound vibration, as Tesla told us.
Right.
When you think of the universe, think of sound and vibration. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's so they're running around amok because to me it's malignant ignorance and arrogance. It's they've had this imposed ignorance upon them. They think they have to hold the secrets because the Vatican is the biggest library on earth. No one would know it. No one is able to have a library card to go in there. The Pope isn't even allowed to go down there.
Right.
These artificers that are even above the Pope, like on the Black Pope level, up on the capstone of the pyramid level, have all this knowledge. But what is it getting them? It's like the people with all the toys and the yachts and all the wealth that they've sucked up. What has it gotten you when you've lost your soul? This is the ultimate moment for that. This 0 point, still point of, okay, you sucked up all that material wealth, you have all this power and control, but what has it gotten you when you yourself have imprisoned you in that box of power? You're sitting in your little ivory tower or your underground bunker now, where they've all run. And they've done this many times before. They did it in Babylon, they went underground.
They're expecting or they're projecting, you know, and we're changing that as well.
We're far freer and wealthier than they are because we can go dance out on the hillside.
What I was going to say is that, you know, they've been projecting that, you know, Planet X is coming and that there's an asteroid that's going to hit the Earth. Again, the Booga Booga, September 24th, or, you know, just around the corner, and they're running away into their bunkers, or hopefully they're running into the cigar ships that they have and they can leave.
Ebola,
you know?
All this shit they're throwing at us that just will not stick anymore. No one buys it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're seeing that the vaccines that they're creating are potentially lethal, and at best, you know, compromise your immune system, make you sick. At best, so people are seeing it, I think, globally. To a great extent, there's still a large percentage that are still kind of asleep and going through their survival mechanism modality of just going along to get along. Maybe 30%. It's that number, 30-40%, is diminishing daily as everyone wakes up.
What I wanted to kind of come back to is that we have the power as a collective tribe to shift those timelines, to shift, like an asteroid coming, or that Planet X, Nibiru, is going to come here and is going to cause all kinds of problems. I mean, and not only as a collective, as a human collective, but also our ET extra-terrestrial family collective, you know, that is watching us and observing us and also collaborating with us. Not anymore just watching and observing, but now that we're requiring for their assistance, for them to collaborate with us, for them to assist us in transmuting and changing the timelines and changing these cataclysmic events, you know, it is definitely going to cause pause to these power grabbers. That's all they are. And like, they're very distorted in their, and like I said, it's almost like they have a virus in their head that's caused their distortion that is going to be pretty shocking to them, because they're expecting a big, like, annihilation of planet Earth, September 24th, and the destruction.
They want a planet-wide 9/11, but it's,
right.
It's going to be totally reversed on them. It's going to be their own 9/11, their own destruction. Really, is what it's going to be. So they've wanted a new world order. There's going to be a new world order, but it's not going to be the one that they've theorized or tried to put into place over the centuries at all. It's not going to go down there, and they're going to get diseases. They're going to be the sick ones, because they won't be able to survive on the planet with this new vibration. And that's what it's all about, is this new uplift vibration, and you simply won't be able to be here. And we have our own theory, Sonic and I, about why all the methane at the North Pole is going to cause a violent rain. We can go into that. That's going to be a cosmic purge or a purifier that's going to sweep away the last of them. We've seen it in our sort of psychic visions. And
we're also embedding it into the quantum field, and we've done, the last couple of shows have been pretty awesome, because we've done the quantum field work, which we did leave the containers open for that to continue to grow, but we'll come back to that next week with our next show, when some of our guests come back and assist us in that process, that are, these are intuitives, that are real intuitives. These are not your fake card reader, turnover card palm. I'm not going to say everybody is, but there's a lot of psychics out there that are not really psychic, that are more like feel-good people that are out there making a buck at being intuitives. So the people that we've invited to our shows are really the real deal, and they actually are helping to and collaborating to build that. And we're seeing a tremendous amount of support from many different dimensions and many different levels, where they're actually coming in and collaborating with us, which is awesome. But so that definitely is going to usurp them and their whole plans, and how they've been trying to overtake this planet. So we keep working on it, and then we have some beings that we speak to that we won't mention here, that are human and that are connected to good ETs, that are literally intervening, because I asked, and other people have asked them to intervene and help us get rid of this. I want to talk about that technology, that Dream Warrior technology, Chris. That is basically a synthetic program that they embed into people while they're sleeping, so they have not your dreams, but their dreams. They kind of take over, and they come in and they control and manipulate that way, and cause all kinds of disturbances. So let's talk a little bit about that, and what we can not only talk about what they're doing, but how we can assist and
remedy from that, and protect ourselves from that. Well, I think you're alluding to, I have a series of mantras, and that goes back to what I said about we're our own programmers. Forget being passive. You're in the command module. You're in the command chair of your own existence on all levels, and you go very far out into the universe. Don't forget that. Everything you've been taught is a lie, basically.
Pretty much.
That you're just this little sack of bones, sack of meat on some deserted rock, out in the middle of nowhere. No one's around to help you.
And now they've come up with a new theory that they're passing through their, what I call their misinformationists, that flat Earth theory, or bowl theory. What do they call it? I forget.
No, it's this flat Earth
This
theory. Is the Catholic Church
Yeah.
Thumbing their nose at everyone and going, we'll go back to pre-Columbian,
right.
pre-Columbus ideas and screw you. And we've got all the power and we can make you think whatever we want, and we'll throw this at you and we'll throw that, like some sorcerer, like some not even that, but
not
like,
even
like
that, but the Wizard of Oz, you know,
like
behind
an
the curtain.
illusionist at a country fair. It's like puff of smoke. The Wizard of Oz, yes, behind the curtain, throwing up fire and brimstone. And, I have the power, and we walk up and pull the curtain back, and it's a shriveled 90-year-old man who's ready to fall down because he's done. They're at their end. So back to the mantras. And the protecting ourselves from their Dream Warrior technology and what's called the Global Information Network, or GIN, which includes the HARP towers, the Gwen towers, i.e. cell towers, construct or web. You just program yourself. You know, I am clear. I will have no incursions by any interfering entities of any kind, evil entities that want to invade or make an incursion upon me. I am shielded from that. I shield myself. I protect myself at all times from that. You can do it. You can configure the words in any way that you want, but basically it's that you're girding your loins, you're girding yourself against their incursions, and then and say, I will dream clearly and lucidly tonight with no interference. You know, and
can you repeat that, Chris?
I will dream clearly and lucidly tonight with no interference, and you can say that 20 times. That's my magic number. It's the rule is if you can keep a thought for 17 full seconds and repeat it, keep it, hold on to it, it starts to become real. So I go a bit further than that. I almost double it. You know, I say it 20 times, therefore it's about 30, 40 seconds that you're holding that thought in your mind. And I have a series of 20, 30 mantras I use and repeat them 20, sometimes 30 times, sometimes 50, in order to feel it's just whatever to you feels like, okay, this is starting to resonate through my DNA, from the subatomic level up to the crown and out. You know, once you start to feel that resonate. So lying there on the pillow after you put the book down, you know, say these mantras 20, 30 times.
Can you give me your crystalline mantra?
I am pure, I am perfect, I am crystalline. I am pure, I am perfect, I am crystalline. Another version of that is I am pure, I am perfect, I am crystalline. Light body. I am pure, I am perfect, I am crystalline. I am in perfect health and nothing can harm me is a really powerful one. Say that 50 times. Program your day with it. Wake up with it. Go and see how your days alter when you use these powerful, positive, affirmational mantras to literally program your reality and how in your attitude and your being shielded and protected from any harmful influence, because we we're passive and apathetic. We have these chinks in our armor, we have these cracks in the facade that they stick anything in. Any little crack that appears, they'll try to stick something in. They'll try to stick needles into you. So it's just about girding yourself, pulling yourself up. Do this when you're in your meditative state is the most powerful. But you can stop if you feel harmed, threatened, something's not right. You can stop and say, you know, I am at peace, I am in perfect health at all times. I am protected from evil at all times.
I do it like 10, 15 minutes right before I'm about to fall asleep, because that goes into my subconscious mind. So I'm literally programming my subconscious mind and shielding myself before I go to sleep so that they can't insert their
weaponized whatever it is, whether it's the Dream Warrior technology.
Their Dream Warrior, like you call it Dream Warrior technology, I call it.
That's what it's known as. That's what it's heard it described as.
Okay. So to me, it's synthetic thoughts that are put into my head.
They call it synthetic telepathy.
And manipulates me to sleep and have a dream pattern that they choose for me to have, as opposed to me choosing my own. And the last couple of nights I've been really focused on having, and I've realized why they're doing that is because we are actually becoming awake, not only in our time where, like we are right now, speaking to all of you, but in our dream time. And our dream time is very, very powerful. I mean, the dream time is what the Aborigines used actually to travel, to change timelines, to create,
to learn from their elders,
to connect with each other. So it's a very powerful time.
To learn sacred information from their elders.
And especially now that we're actually gaining access to the quantum field, it's like it's even more powerful. So if I have a certain thing that I want to create into reality, I can dream it in my dreams, and literally then it outpictures itself physically in my reality, and that's what they're trying to prevent. So it's been interesting the last couple of nights that I've been using these mantras and doing this technology to not allow this incursion to come in, because the more I do it, the more the things that I'm wanting to see picture themselves in my reality, in my waking state, are starting to unfold themselves. So that, I think, is part and parcel why they're doing this. You know, and they have all kinds of mechanisms that they've had in the past to insert fear and panic and hatred and all that stuff into our consciousness. And now that we're waking up and realizing how they're doing that, we can actually, you know, we could actually unchink, if you like, or take that away from them and from us, and disconnect from that, and start creating the planet that we have all envisioned, as opposed to, you know, their distorted planet. And like I've said, you know, why are they aerosol spraying the whole planet? Because, you know, with aluminum, for all things, with barium, things that kill human beings and plants and animals. Well, of course they want to do that, because the Dracos don't need as much oxygen as we do. They want to re-terraformat the Earth for another species. Think about it. And I'm telling you this. I'm telling you, and Chris has said this, that the moment that we all wake up and we realize what and who has done this, and who's made the orders in governments that are presidents or kings or queens or military, the moment that we as a mass find this out and find the culprits, what do you think is going to happen to them? You think they're going to stay alive? I don't think so.
They've all been complicit. I would say 98% or more of them have been complicit. You get a couple of little bell ringers in there. You know, Ron Paul maybe, but he was controlled. He was controlled opposition.
Well,
so there.
What did Bush say? If the American public knew what we were doing to them, they would come out on the streets and lynch us.
Right.
Right.
Right. So, but what we're experiencing now, I think, is a bloodless coup. It's a bloodless revolution. It's a revolution of consciousness, where their little war games are no longer going to compel us anymore, and they're doing these old tricks over and over and over again. They're the old dog who can't learn new tricks, and we're over here on the other side, in the other corner, learning all this great new information, or relearning it, and feeling it in our DNA that we have known it before in the deep past, and now we're coming to learn it again. And be aware also, everyone, that the subconscious mind is held in the DNA. That's where the subconscious mind is. The mind is also within and without us too. So, you know.
Well, it's like sorry to interrupt you, but like the Buddhists talk about the mind, the body mind. It's not just in your head. You know, you have like your mind goes from your heart to your head to your sacral area. It's like your whole body is your mind.
But it keeps going out. The chakras, it's proven, go extend down into the earth and extend all the way to the galactic center and beyond. So we are literally, you know, like the body of the universe, and we're a homunculus of the universe. We're having this small bipedal human experience on this planet to in order to learn, I believe, stewardship, love, compassion, all the positive things that create life. So by doing these mantras and getting rid of their nightmare projections upon our dreaming body, which is, like Sonic said, very powerful. The Aboriginals knew this. they use dream time to visit their elders and get information from the elders and bring back to the tribe. That's this very shamanic thing. So you'll stop having these psychotic circus dreams of for me, like, you wake up and you go, wow, that was just psychotic. That was nothing I was ever thinking of. That was a projection. That's somebody's weird, sick projection.
That's how you know that it's a synthetic implant.
Yes.
A dream implant is what I would call it. I mean, you want to call it dream warrior technology, but to me it's like a synthetic thought pattern that has been embedded into you while you sleep that is completely not you. And you know that, like you said,
you know
because you have these insane dreams that have nothing to do with what you experienced the day before or the night before you fell asleep, or a couple of days, and they come out of nowhere.
They come out of nowhere, and they're nightmares, basically. So you'll know when that is gone, and you can start having dreams about the world you want to create. Say, like, great gardens and people coming together and having good times and frolicking and having celebrations and new technologies and free energy and that kind of thing, where you have good dreams where you visit maybe departed relatives or
my
old
dad
friends.
my dad has been, now that I'm taking control of my dream time, he's been coming to visit me very consistently for the last 3 or 4 times that I've been dreaming.
Yeah, almost nightly now for
You know, so that's the other thing, is that you could talk to your departed loved ones and literally have that experience, physical experience with them in that realm that you don't get to have here, you know. So I think that's pretty amazing that's unfolding. So
well, every time we dream, we have a non-physical death experience. Really, what I'm saying is we experience what happens upon death without the death of the physical body. So our soul, whatever you want to call it, our spirit, goes out the crown chakra and it goes roaming around. And so they want to break that connection that would entrain us to being familiar with being able to easily and freely have the spirit travel. And aren't they doing the same thing to us physically? Restricting travel, restricting how we travel. Everybody's poor. I mean, look at what they've done. They've de-enriched the United States, which was once, a proud, rich place, constantly at warfare, but we had, post World War II, we had some freedoms and mobility, and that the constrictions have just been pushing us down like a pressure cooker, or like, keeping us down. So they want to restrict travel at every level, really, when you think about it. Intellectual travel, they want to control knowledge and information, they want to control us emotionally, they want to make us these dull zombies with their pharmaceutical drugs, everything, poisonous belief systems, everything to keep us in a box, keep us immobilized, even at the spirit, soul, dreaming level. Mm-hmm. So program yourself for healthy dreams. What Dan Winter would call a successful death. Program your life for a successful death, like the pharaohs did, meaning to electromagnetically map your environment. That's a whole other thing we could get into, but you can visit links to Dan Winter and go through his whole lecture series. But I would strongly encourage it. But that's not to bring in the subject, but that's just to entrain us to where we have a healthy, long life and a successful, nice death, where we have a peaceful transition, like
what I call a transition, not because it really is not. There is no death.
Well, where your death will be at age 120 or 150, and you will just go into a short, like you're taking a nap, and you will just go right out at the top of your crown chakra. It'll be like another dream. It'll be like one of the thousands and thousands of dreams you would have entrained yourself to having this healthy relationship with the beyond, I would say. Instead of this psychotic, fearful, paranoid, awful construct that they're imposing upon us.
Definitely imposed so that they could control us, manipulate us, so that they would be the middleman again.
That we would have to go run to these little
pedophile or
death
priest.
brokers, where, spirit brokers, who Christ Yeshua said, that was another thing they suppressed. He said, you don't need a middleman, you don't need a church, you don't need a priest. You just split a piece of wood, you just go, basically he was saying, go out in nature, that's your church. That's what I personally have subscribed to most of my, half of my life or more when I left the Roman Catholic programming, got out of that, and it took me 20 years to deprogram myself, to get out of that fearful, loathsome mindset and spirit set that they put you into, to keep you their little fearful little child running to their robes of absolvement. So
to keep you as their slave, right?
Exactly. So once you pull yourself out of that construct and you get into more of what I would call a neo-pagan, earth-centered, Buddhistic, like Mahayana Buddhist, where you have reverence for all life, the opposite of narcissism and ignorance and arrogance. You have this, I am a steward of creation, and your existence becomes much more organic, principled at that point, and you see all of the ecology as your stewardship. And who do we see? These psychotic maniacs in power that are deliberately committing ecocide for us, for them. And so that's all part of it too. I think you have to become an environmentalist. That's a bad word for just becoming who we are. Stewards of the earth, stewards of all the plant and animal life on the earth.
How about becoming a naturist?
Yeah, naturalist, but that has a bad connotation too. That says some kook at a nudist colony, who grows his beard down to his waist. But it's because it's a naturalism. I don't like isms or ist. Just.
I didn't call it naturalism. I call it nature.
Naturist, you said.
Naturist.
But basically, yeah. That's what we need to become is pure naturalism. Is a purely natural trajectory or communion with our surroundings instead of this. I mean, look at what your school learning did for you. And I know if any of you are listening between the ages of 18 and 30, you know that if you went to college, that you got gypped, you got ripped off. Your school book learning, unless it was philosophy, poetry, literature, classics, if you were learning some vocation, and I would say also medicine, law, political science,
especially law,
history, lots of the sciences, most all of the sciences, unless you were one of these renegades off from the left, like Nassim Haramein and Dan Winter, your education is almost worthless. I say almost because you did learn you did learn the periodic table. You did learn fundamental ways to have critical thinking, like I did when I went to school. I did learn. They did teach me critical thinking. That's the only thing I can say my education was worth. The rest of it is somebody's projection and speculation, by what I call the archontic construct. And plus, you're 30 to 60,000 and sometimes more in debt now, and you can't get a job. So, you're learning to pull back, to be more conservative. But I can't have kids. I'm never going to be able to pay this off. This is like buying a small house, that I'm going to be paying on for most of the remainder of my life. For what? I can't find a job to pay it with. So what is your education? And we've seen that has been a hoax, largely. 80%. Well, you get a percentage of facts mixed with lies.
That's the other thing that all these organizations that are supposedly universities and educational centers and all that. That's also been co-opted by the same group.
It's indoctrination.
It's all been overtaken by the same group and manipulated and contrived and controlled by them. Instead of you learning how to be raw milk farmer, or or how to do biodynamic gardening,
create a free energy device,
and doing free energy devices and doing all things that are benefiting the planet. Instead, they're teaching you the opposite. It's completely overtaken and completely manipulated, and it's a farce, And I have a lot of people that have said, "Wow, you should get your psychology degree, or you should get." And I was like, "What the hell for? I don't need you. I don't need your stupid educational devices, and I don't need to have a diploma on my wall to say this is who I am." When I already have all those abilities innately in me. So that is one of the things that I want to speak to as we, because we're at the 60-minute mark. We can go another half hour. But I want to speak to, to all of you to think creatively, to think out of the box. I had a young lady, her name is Kathy, who consults with me quite a bit intuitively. And she was going to MIT, and I was like, "Why the hell are you in MIT?" And she was suffering. She was not happy there. Her teachers were treating her poorly. She had a little bit of a panic disorder. And I told her, I said, what I see in your future is that you're going to be creating an energy device, a medical energy device that's going to heal people energetically. And it's not going to need to embed drugs into them or anything like that. And now she's studying with Nassim. And she's studying with Dan Winters, and she's studying with all these people that are innovators, so that she can come up with her own innovations. But that's literally what I saw, and I said, those schools are going to block you. They're going to stop you from actually being innovative. They're going to put you, she's going to become an MD, and I said, you're going to die as an MD. You're going to hate what you do, because you're going to be so repressed. And you're not going to be able to practice medicine the way you want to practice it. And she totally had like a 180 and realized and went, "Oh my God, you just saved me and my family." Like, her tuition at MIT for a medical doctor was going to be like $200,000 or $300,000. She's like, "You saved us so much money." And now I'm learning so much with Nassim and with these other people. And I'm starting to get a grasp of what you were telling me of what I'm going to be able to bring to the world if I'm thinking freely, openly, and outside the box instead of being stuck in a box. Because that's what the educational system does to all of us. It sticks us in a box. All it teaches us how to be is good little slaves.
Careerism.
Is either good little slaves so that we can pay our taxes to the government, so that we can be good little slaves to work for a corporation and pay them our sweat, blood, and tears. That's basically all your education is good for. It really isn't good for anything else.
It doesn't teach you to be an innovator and think outside the box at all. If you look classically throughout history, all the way back, all of the innovators, free thinkers, game changers, they were not academics. If they did have any college education, their innovations, belied that, and were not dependent upon it. It gave them a foundation for expanding their critical thinking. But if you asked most of them, like me, and I didn't attain a college degree because I left long before that because I saw it for what it was, which was an inculcating
Well, like Nassim is one of them.
Well, he's got a college degree, and so does Dan Winter, but what they're teaching is not based on that. That was they're enlightened in spite of their education, like Mark Twain said.
Right.
Don't let education get in the way of your whatever he said. Don't let school learning get in the way of your education. Something like that. So for all of us innovator game changers, we eschew academic learning by and large.
Like I told, I don't know if I still am, probably not anymore, but key witness for state of New York for a trial by jury. And it was interesting because when the DA of New York was interviewing me, and I was telling him what I did and all that, and he was like, "Oh, that's impossible." And I said, "Well, you know what? Us crazy ones are the ones that change the world. Not you." I said, "Not you or your dad," because his dad is a gynecologist. I said, "Not you or all of you. All the inventors didn't." Tesla, I said, Tesla never went to a college education. And I did say that to him, and he said, I guess you're right. I said, yeah, I am right. So it's us crazy ones that change the world.
Henry Ford didn't go to college.
Not the mainstream average Joe that goes through university and all that.
He becomes what's a pedant, is what you become. You become a tied-down quisling to the academic system, into academic minutia, and officiousness.
Yeah.
And careerism. That's all that academia really teaches you.
So with that, we're going to take a little teeny, 1.5 minute break, and I'm going to play for you guys a saying from Yoda and then from Dune.
For my ally is the Force, and the power for all it is. Life creates it, makes it grow, and its energy surrounds us and binds us. Living esteems so not this crude matter.
So that kind of goes to what we're talking to, and now we're gonna, because the sleeper on the planet Earth, us, has awakened. So here you go. So Emperor, we come for you is basically the people in power.
Basically like the Black Pope, and people are constantly controlling religions and mindsets.
And trying to control the planet and those of us that think out of the box, but the more and more of us butterflies are coming out of the cocoons, and there's way too many of us and too little of them. So.
We are the ones we have been waiting for, said the Hopies, and I think they nailed it. It's up to us. It really is. They quit looking for some bearded guy on a cloud up there. It's you. So when you're reaching out and praying to someone, a lot of times you're praying to your higher self or star friends and family, ETs, guides out there. Forget religious constructive personalities and what Dan Winter calls miracle worship. Or Nassim Haramein calls it that.
Yeah.
They work together. They reference each other.
And isn't it great that they actually, that they work with each other? They're not working against each other, and they don't have these big egos that are trying to, edge each other out. It's actually that they're collaborating with each other, And like Chris was saying yesterday, there's more and more and more. They can't stop it. These new technologies that are coming out, that are free energy technologies, that there's just so many of them everywhere.
They're all kinds of people from all over the globe. There's no way that they can kill all these scientists in time to stop. It should have been, if they wanted to kill it all the time, they should have stopped, 20, 30 years ago. But their own ignorance and arrogance is their own undoing.
Well, that's their own demise, like I've always said. So we could wrap up the show at this time, or if you want to talk about a couple other things.
I think we kind of covered it for this one. We could go on and on, probably for hours, about how to empower ourselves from the manipulative construct.
Well, one of the things that I would say, and any time I talk to individuals that truly are connected and are in communication and in communion with our ET starship family, if you like, the good ETs, I'm no longer pleading or asking. I'm actually commanding, and I'm actually requiring, that they intercede. So if all of you guys that are out there, request that of your friends, or if you know people that are truly really connected to these ETs, like if I was standing in front of Barbara Marciniak or any of these, what do they call them? Communicators, or I forget.
Channelers.
Like, not channelers, but, like Alex Collier, that he's a contactee. I would actually tell them, if they said, our star friends want to talk to you and they want to know what you want, I would say, I'm requiring you to intercede and to actually collaborate with us to change the planetary, powers that are here, and start changing the structure here, and start getting rid of this malevolent, distorted, overtaken, parasitic overlay.
Well, enough of us are requesting their assistance to where it is becoming in effect a requirement.
Well, that's why I'm saying a requirement.
Well, we don't have to say I require you, but it has become a requirement of them because so many are calling it in.
I basically say I require. I'm no longer asking. I'm actually demanding at this point, because we're at that point. We're at that crucible that if we keep pleading and begging, going, oh please, that makes us wimpy. And we're not stepping into our power, and that makes them step back and go.
Well, that's why they have held back, partly, is because they were allowed a space for us to come into our own power.
Right. So now that we've come into our power, I'm saying stand here beside me and help me change the frequency on the planet and change the dynamic on the planet of a planet that has been slated by the Dracos, these malevolent Dracos, to be a slave planet. No longer. No more.
Not here. We can go down on some asteroid or Pluto or somewhere. So it's not going to be here.
Right. So I'm just putting that out there to all of you that are somehow connected to either contactees or to people that channel these beings, to require of them. No longer plead and beg, but request, and come from that place of inner strength and inner power, and requiring them for them to stand by us to make the change happen. So, with that, we can close the show, and we'll see you guys next week.
Namaste, everybody. Be well.
This radio show is a live, interactive internet radio show where we explore our multidimensional, true and divine nature. Here is where we enlighten and brighten your lives with all sorts of amazing, inspirational, and eye-opening information, from the occult to the extraordinary.